Yo, what's up? So it's come to my attention that Yunjin is actually a very special character. I think she is probably one of the most special characters that MiHoYo have released so far, not in terms of gameplay, not in terms of her mechanics, or her visual design. Even though she is extremely beautiful, she is very pretty, she is very well designed from a visual standpoint. But I think she is also probably the most out there in terms of her backstory and culture that we have gotten so far from Genshin Impact. And that has created some kind of backlash, discussion, or controversy in terms of how she is presented. Most notably, that we actually got to listen to a bit of Chinese opera or Peking opera, whatever you call it, in her reveal during the live stream event. So let's just listen to it and see what all the discussion about, right? Because we actually need to know how it sounds to know what people are talking about on Twitter and Reddit or whatever it is that they're talking about on the internets.
云婵娟来，花婵娟，风流尽在山水间。
Yeah, and that's basically it. That's what we heard on the live stream, and that's what people are talking about on Twitter, on Reddit, on whatever platform it is that you spit out your nonsense. So obviously, it's not exactly the epitome of what Westerners or most people would consider good music. It's a very traditional Chinese way of singing, specifically for Chinese opera or Beijing or Peking pop opera, whatever you call it. So it's going to get some kind of incredulity or some kind of misunderstanding. Considering how big Genshin Impact is, obviously it's not just for a Chinese audience. There's going to be a lot of people who don't understand Chinese culture or Chinese opera listening to it. And as a result, there's going to be some kind of, let's say, weirdness that comes out of such an interaction. Most notably, when you look at Twitch chat, there's going to be some kind of cringe emotes. There's going to be some kind of what the fuck is this, right? That's basically what it is. What the fuck is this? Why are you broadcasting this when you're trying to sell a character? But the reality is Genshin Impact has made it very clear they're trying to stand for Chinese culture. They're trying to present this character as a Chinese opera singer as best as they can and as true to what Chinese opera sounds like. So this is the battle game design, the game battle designer, I think, the system battle designer, who specifically states, with the hope of encouraging the audience's enthusiasm for traditional culture. This is Yunjing's wish, as well as our own as game developers. The traditional content is interpreted in an innovative way, which basically means we're going to put this traditional culture along with this new anime-esque traditional, not traditional, but like Genshin Impact gaming content, which is entirely fine. I think this is great because it lets us see a vastly different kind of culture than what you would normally see as traditional Western culture, right? We've gotten to see traditional Japanese culture, Western European culture in Mondstadt, and Chinese culture in Liyue. But I think this is so far the most different in terms of what we've gotten as a cultural piece of content. And I think that's entirely fine. You don't have to like it. I think there's a lot of, what's it called? A lot of promotion or a lot of backlash to the cringe reactions to this Chinese opera, but I don't think it's actually wrong to dislike it. It might be kind of rude to say that, wow, what the fuck is this? This is shit. This is some like Chinese shit. But I don't think it's actually wrong to say, well, it's obviously not what we are used to, and we kind of don't like it. But I appreciate that you're presenting true to this piece of culture, true to what it actually sounds like, and not like redoing it so that it becomes more palatable. I think this is actually very nice because it is true to what Chinese opera sounds like. And you're basically seeing a bunch of tweets about how some people are upset about the cringe reactions, right? But honestly, I think maybe it's just because of the way Twitter is. When you search Chinese opera on Twitter, right? you actually get more pushback than I think there were reactions that were negative about the Chinese opera scene. So I think this is a good thing. It means that most people are on board with it, at least on the Twitter sphere, which, to be fair, is kind of like an echo bubble because it's very left wing, it's very liberal, whatever, whichever way you want to call it. It's not going to stand for a lot of discrimination, at least in the cultural sphere of things. So that's how it is. And you can see that people are pointing out that they put a lot of effort into faithfully portraying the Chinese opera. And honestly, there is not a lot of drama here. It's just some people pointing out, yeah, this is Chinese opera. Make of it what you will. Yunjing is a character who sings Chinese opera. That's how it is. And it has a certain way of sounding that is not like um, really palatable to most non-Chinese ways of music. That's basically how it is. That's just yeah. And you can see that the banners on our back are also inspired by Chinese opera singers with the banners. That this is what she is inspired from. That's where the pom poms on her head come from. This is basically the premise under which Yunjing was created. Of course, made palatable towards a Genshin Impact audience. Everyone needs to listen to Yunjing sing right now, blah blah blah. I think this was actually pretty interesting. Is this GLIHTTR is saying that it gave her anxiety or him anxiety when she was hearing Yunjing sing traditional Chinese Beijing opera, followed by a sad wave of nostalgia and heartbreak, then homesickness. Screw what anyone says, but Genshin really did give me a sense of home with Liu and his characters. And that's the same as well for me. Not with the Chinese opera scene. I personally am Chinese, of course, but I am not that involved or not that knowledgeable of Chinese culture in general. At least when it comes to like firsthand reading Chinese literature or watching Chinese TV shows or watching Chinese cartoons. For me, Genshin Impact is pretty much the most I am involved in with Chinese culture outside of like the basic Chinese diaspora shit like Chinese New Year or um, going to Chinese Saturday school. That's pretty much the extent of my exposure to Chinese culture outside of Genshin Impact. But even for me, I thought Liu was very well done in terms of representing Chinese culture, and MiHoYo seems to be continuing that with a Chinese opera, albeit it does not seem to be as palatable towards a foreign audience. That's what you'll get. And I'm not even sure if MiHoYo is concerned about that because, of course, their biggest audience is still Chinese, and there's nothing bad about representing Chinese opera in that sphere of like Genshin Impact. It is a Liu character, a Chinese character. Clarify, I grew up being laughed at by foreigners for seeing Chinese opera, and honestly just embracing my Chinese culture. They thought it sounded funny or strange. I can write essays. Yeah, there's a lot of like liberal essays about, you know, diaspora culture and whatever like that to elaborate. But seeing the same people that made fun of my enjoying Genshin, things do change. Yeah, um, it is good. I think no matter how much like cringiness or like backlash towards Yunjing we get, this is essentially normalizing a part of Chinese culture that has been like made fun of and being a source of discrimination for Chinese people. So MiHoYo is doing a solid one, or no matter what kind of backlash they get. Because of just how popular Genshin Impact is, there's going to be a lot of people who are now like, oh, I see, that is Chinese opera. Even if I don't like it, I know what it is. It's fine. So there is no drama here. It's just how Yunjing is. It's how she is portrayed faithfully to her background and backstory. I love it. And that's all there is to it.